You have arrived. After a journey from the mountain homes into the forbidding wilderness beyond, your harsh trek has finally ended. Your party of 7 is to make an outpost for the glory of all of Arcathral. There are almost no supplies left, but with stout labor comes sustenance, whether by bolt, plow, or hook, provide for your dwarves. You're expecting a supply caravan just before winter entombs you, but it is spring now, enough time to delve secure lodgings ere the cougars get hungry. A new chapter of dwarven history begins at this place. Ricker Domas, Whisker Guilds, strike the earth. So as cool as that sounded, it's a bit over dramatic. You don't really need to worry about most of the things it said. Winter is not any worse than any other season. I mean, in certain places, the river will freeze, so you won't have that backup. As I've said before, I don't think wild predators are typically dangerous. I think it's a cougar, was it? But we probably won't be attacked by them. There's currently only a weasel. And food is not very difficult early on. Our single herbalist will be able to easily gather enough food for everybody in the fortress for quite a while. So what do we need to do? My focus early on is getting my initial dwarves working on their intended jobs. So we need our miner to start mining out our fortress, our carpenter to start practicing carpentry, our stone carver to start practicing stone carving, our woodcutter to start cutting down trees, our farmer to start gathering plants and working towards getting a farm set up, and our brewer and cook brewing and cooking. So to get there, the first step is to start planning the fortress. If you control scroll, you can zoom out. I find that a lot easier. Well, I prefer like this level of zoom, I think. So planning a fortress, there's a lot of ways to do it, and I don't want to do for years I'd make like the exact same fortress every single time, and so I try to avoid making the same thing now. So I've been looking around the map to see if there's any exposed stone. What you need to do for that is you look like at the walls and see this is white sand, this is white sand, this is mudstone. It seems mudstone is the only exposed stone we have. You want most of your fortress to be built into stone, not dirt. If you're getting stone, an important crafting material as you're mining out your fortress, and you can smooth and engrave the walls and floors later, which dwarves love, high quality engraved walls. But you don't necessarily need to start out in stone. You could start into white sand and dig down until you hit stone. And I also like building into a wall to begin with, rather than like just making a staircase on the floor. You can do that if it's really just a flat map, but I think digging into a wall looks a lot better. It's, I guess, mostly for looks. I think I'm gonna start here. So I would recommend having a hallway as the entrance to your fortress, mainly for security reasons. You can put a bridge to block it and traps in it to keep your fortress safe, and give extra time before invaders get to your fortress. I think for the most part, your main hallways you want to be too wide, because in a one wide hallway for dwarves to pass each other, one of them has to crawl on the ground. And for the entrance, it could be worth making it 3 or 4, which does not need to apply to the whole fortress, but you might want to make it bigger because caravans will want to bring wagons with them, which need a 3 wide area to walk through. And for a long time I used to just put the trade depot right outside the fortress, and I guess that is kind of okay, but it's a little bit nicer, I think, if you have a room for them to be kind of safe in. If you get attacked by like goblins and they attack the caravan, you will be blamed for it and they'll be mad at you. So it's nice to be able to protect a caravan. I think just like a little room here would be sufficient. And actually what we can do to speed up mining early on, we can just designate the outline of what we want and then remove orders that aren't immediately necessary, so we can get to the main fortress faster. So like the trade depot, we won't need that for several seasons, so just cut it off for now and mine that out later. The hallway, I don't think it matters too much how long it is. I mean, The longer will mean it takes longer for your dwarves to walk in and out of the fortress, which can be a bit annoying, but it also allows you to put a better defense. So I think this is a little bit longer than I would normally go with. You can actually scale it back. And it's also good to have space ready to make a barracks here. So, you know, all the dwarves training there are immediately ready to get out to the exit of the fortress and fight. But that's just planning for later. And you're going to want to dig down until you hit stone. And you won't know when exactly you're going to hit stone. It's going to dig down 2 layers and see what happens. And that will be what our miner will be working on to begin with. As for the rest of our dwarves, we're going to want to get our woodcutter started. So we'll just designate a bunch of trees to cut down, and, you know, it'll take them a while to do it. Prioritize trees, you know, near the entrance to the fort, because that's where the wood will be easiest to collect. You can also, if you want, look at the types of trees and see, like, these are apple trees, so you can get fruit from them. So you might want to, like, not cut down the apple trees or the persimmon trees. I'd focus on the fruit ones. I'm not sure. I don't think nuts are as useful. And then you can also just set an order to gather every single plant on the map. You know, just give your herbalist plenty of things to do. For our other dwarves, we'll be trying to get crafting workshops set up as soon as we can. Now here's one of the problems with the Steam release. Every single person has gone to gather plants. The labor settings are very strange. So, I mean, it's easy enough, we can tell our miner not to gather plants and just do mining, and that makes enough sense. But if we say want to set up a carpenter workshop immediately, our carpenter won't work on the workshop. He'll be too busy gathering plants. So for plant gathering, we have this plant gatherers labor group. It's kind of complicated. So what we can do is give the proficient herbalist, this farmer we've brought, the plant gatherer labor group, and make it so only those selected to do plant gathering will do it. That way, the entire fortress, it'll take them a moment, I believe. They'll have to finish the task they were on. But now they've stopped, and now they'll actually do what they're supposed to be doing. It for some reason is obsessed with making you have a fisher dwarf at the beginning of the game. I'm not sure why. But we don't really need one to begin with. That is another option. Like, instead of the animal trainer, you could just bring a fisher dwarf. But this also applies to every single job that isn't defined here. And that's kind of annoying, because it used to be you'd select your mason and they'd already have the masonry task enabled, and nobody else would have the masonry task enabled because they had no skill in it. So why would you want them doing masonry? Now you need to... Here's a little tutorial you can read. Now you need to make your own work detail. So we have stone carving, and this is the stone carving work detail that our stone carver will do, and only our stone carver will do. If we don't do this, then anybody that feels like it will just do stone carving, which is bad because we want to build up skill in one stone carver to make them so they can make high quality items and faster. For some jobs, this new system is helpful, like stone cutting is now a skill where there's no quality to the output. It's for making blocks, which have no quality, and smoothing walls, which have no quality. So stone cutting, you can just let anybody do it, and they'll just make the blocks whenever they're not busy with something else, and that's fine. But for, like, carpentry, I want high quality beds for my dwarves. I don't want literally anybody to just do carpentry at any time. So I need to make my own carpentry work detail and assign my carpenter to it. I'll also be making a brewing and cooking labor group. Skills aren't as important on these, but I'd still rather stop my other dwarves from wasting their time brewing when I have a dedicated brewer who will do it much faster. Okay, and now we've hit mudstone, so we can now begin the fortress. As for how to do that, again, I don't want to tell you exactly what to do because For a long time I kept making the exact same fortress, and I realized there are a lot of other ways I could do this, and they could even be better than what I've been doing. So I also mentioned a few of the important early things you'll need. A dining hall / tavern, a food stockpile, food preparation workshops near that food stockpile, and then the carpenter and mason workshop. Okay, I'm gonna try the new layout I'm just thinking of now. I'll have stuff for visitors near the surface, and then what I like to do, even when I'm trying to do a different fortress layout, I'm still ending up doing this, is make a staircase where there's 3 steps in between each stair, and then the next floor. So I put doors in the middle that can potentially be locked in case of emergency to separate the different levels of the fortress. So I'm going to dig out a few floors first, and then I'll see what to place on each floor afterwards. So it might seem like a very slow start where only 3 doors are working at once, but you don't really need to hurry with this game, I found. I play it very slowly. All of our layers so far are mudstone, which is fine, it's an ordinary stone, but it can be worth seeking out a flux stone. If your fortress, you see multiple different types of stone. I'll pull up the list of flux stones, so you can look at it here. Most of them are white, is one way I remember it. And those will be twice as valuable, so it's better to build a fortress there, so you're digging out a lot of it so you can make it into stone furniture and such. And when you're making a floor where the value of a location matters, like bedrooms, it can be very nice to have it on that same level, because then the walls and floor of the bedroom will be worth twice as much. When you're getting a very good engraver on it, that is a huge difference, and a legendary engraver can make extremely valuable rooms. But I've already looked down a bit and have not found any, so I'm just going to start making the fortress here. I don't like to make it too far underground, because then you can accidentally hit the caverns. While mining, if your miner keeps mining stuff that isn't important right now, instead of like deleting orders, you can also set a priority. So these are going to be the first priorities, going to just do that and get a workshop dug out, so I can immediately get started on one of them. So you don't need to make rooms for each workshop, that's just how I do it. I'm going to get the carpenter ready first. My idea this time is going to have the first floor be places that visitors can visit, like a tavern and a library. Then the second floor is going to be workshops that are relevant to the surface. Then I'll keep going down and see what happens there. So for the carpenter, there's a lot of things you can make immediately, and you'll notice some stuff like the stepladder and the wheelbarrow that we got rid of earlier. They're not useless, but you can just make them really easily. But to start building first, I like building just a few miscellaneous things that I might need, so like the stepladder and the wheelbarrow, just because the quality doesn't matter, and it's just a few things to get the carpenter some experience. And then you could start making barrels. Barrels, you're going to need a lot of barrels, and the quality doesn't matter, so just queue up a bunch of them. So for now I'm going to put my stone worker, I keep calling it a mason workshop because that's what it used to be here, but I'll probably move it later once I find like flux stone, and I want my workshop to be near there. But I just want to get my stone worker working, and then start mining out the tavern. I'm just mining a straight line to the food stockpile, because that's going to be the thing I really need first, but the food stockpile I'd rather move behind the tavern rather than in front of it. So here's the stoneworker's workshop. I think for this one early on I like to make doors because I'm going to need a lot of them. So now most of our doors are working. And soon we'll get our brewer working on brewing drinks for the fortress food stockpile here. Then we'll build the dining hall. The next best thing to build would be a dormitory, which is just a room with multiple beds in it instead of individual bedrooms, because it can take a long time to make the individual bedrooms. You don't need to do that immediately, but they do get a little bit mad if they sleep without a bed, so just set up a dormitory. And we can actually start making the food stockpile while it's still being mined out. And then we'll just redefine it later. So this is just to get the currently idle dwarves working on something. And here we go, they're already going. But you can also early on make a pasture for your animals. And so I like to early on just put it in front of the fortress. So just nearby, eventually we'll make an underground one, which will be safer. This is important to do early because if you make a dining hall, animals like to hang out in it because it's a meeting area. Something that's collapsed. Interesting. Okay, apparently something collapsed. That can be a big deal, but it looks like it was just a tree or something. Oh, somebody was, they were knocked unconscious by that. Their woodcutter okay? They apparently have no health problems, so I guess they are. I got distracted from what I was saying there. Animals need a pasture because if they go to a meeting area that's underground with a stone floor, there won't be any grass there and they'll just starve themselves. So you need to tell them to stay in a place that has grass so they can eat. So I can open the stockpile view and click on this and then repaint this stockpile. Make it a bit bigger. And we're going to want an even bigger one than this, but this is just what I'm starting out with for now. Then we can start mining out a portion of what will be the dining hall, just because we won't need the whole thing yet, but eventually it would be good to have a big one. And we'll need to go to the farming section to get the, I guess we'll get the kitchen here and the still. Those are going to be important workshops. Let's see, what is this? Oh, we struck Sard. We've got notifications about gems. We just found a few gems on the ground, whatever. We can already assign our brewer to start brewing drinks from plants. I recommend just setting this to repeat because you'll need as many as they can make. So now we can make a dining hall zone. We can also make it a part of a tavern, which is not something you need to worry about immediately. It's kind of, it feels like more of an optional fun feature for the most part, that you don't get anything that valuable from making a tavern. Our carpenter and stoneworker are already done with their 10 tasks. It can be very helpful to set up a manager early on, because that allows you to assign tasks a lot easier. It used to take me like a year until I'd do it, but with the changes to how you assign tasks, it's a lot more important now because it is very annoying to do this when I want to start making some chairs for the dining room. This is, yeah, look at this. You need to get a manager a lot sooner now. But you need a table and a chair to get a manager. So we can already see the mudstone doors are pretty high quality. A lot of this is the second highest quality, third highest, second lowest. So we're making mostly some pretty nice mudstone doors. And let's stick those on in a few locations wherever you might want them. Doors, hatches, okay. So entrance to the thing, and I like to make it, so we have a good one. Okay, we need to keep building after placement. I just keep that on all the time because I want to place more doors. Look at this. Doors, very nice. And then in between each level of the fortress, quality doesn't matter as much, but I still like to have them be nice. Because dwarves like when they see nice quality items. For our carpenter, we'll start making some beds. We need those for the dormitory. Just make 10. The quality won't matter much because it's just for the dormitory. We'll be keeping them in. We'll be keeping a dormitory in case we get an excess of dwarves at any point. Okay, so I think I found a layout that looked decent enough. If we want to make a tavern, it'll be nice to have bedrooms attached to the tavern. And so I figured, let's make the dormitory attached to the tavern. So here it is. We're putting it here, and this is plans for later additional single occupant bedrooms. I like to make my bedrooms 3x3. A lot of people will do like 2x2 or even 1x2, but I find high quality bedrooms do a lot for boosting a dwarf's mood. So I like to make them just all 3x3, even though it's extra effort. Oh, okay, we're already out of plants. Let's take a look at... So for brewing, you have this thing in the kitchen that determines what items are allowed to be used for. Often I would recommend disabling cooking on drinks, because you want them to be drunk, not eaten. I don't know why it's on by default. It's kind of annoying because they stop functioning as drinks once they're cooked. So you want to disable that. And when you cook plants, you don't get seeds from them. So you may want to disable cooking for plants that you're going to want to be growing in the long term. So potatoes, they can be brewed and cooked. I don't know if they can be eaten raw. I actually don't know. Generally, I know berries are basically the best plant. If you get any berries, fisher berries, blueberries, they can be eaten raw, made into drinks, or cooked, and so they're basically the ideal plant. Oh, this might be what collapsed. That's bad. That's a hole in our roof. That can... I forgot to... Yeah, that actually can be a problem. When you cut down trees over a floor that doesn't have a block beneath it, so like I've mined out here, the falling wood can break the floor. So you should be a bit more careful about that than I was. We'll have to replace that, I guess with just a wood log. Should be a reasonable replacement. There's no way to get the dirt back, so it's just going to look bad forever. But yeah, let's remember not to cut down any trees here. We've got a little dormitory here, a few beds. You don't need like as many as you have dwarves because they won't all sleep at the same time. So now we have some tables and chairs for our dining room. The dwarves will not share tables. So each chair goes to one table, and that's it. You can't have a table surrounded by 4 chairs. They'll only use one of those chairs at a time. So let's just set up a little table at the edge there. If you're going to be making a tavern, you'll actually want drinks within the tavern. So I'm actually going to make a separate stockpile area here. I'll set it to food, but then click custom. So I'll have all the food selected, but then we can modify what exactly we want. So we don't want... actually, we might just set none and set it to all plants, all plant drinks and all animal drinks, which is just mead. You can raise bees. It's similar to like clay and glass, like I mentioned earlier. It's not very helpful, but like maybe if you want it for fun. Let's get our farmer to work by making a farm. So what I like to do for that, let's make the stockpile bigger. We're gonna want, more workshops than this. The total number of farming related workshops, of food related workshops, they still a kitchen, a farmer's workshop, a fishery, butcher, a tanner, but I might separate a few of them from the rest of the kitchen, but I'll still make it bigger because as you can see we're already using quite a bit of space. Oh, and I forgot, okay. This is kind of new. I'm not sure when it was added. It's new to me. Dwarves now want cups to drink with. So I mentioned woodcrafter is almost irrelevant. You do actually need it to make cups. You don't need high skill because you can just have low quality cups, but we'll make a few because there's actually a negative thought. We might see some of our dwarves in their thoughts annoyed after having a drink without using a goblet, cup, or mug, right? So we'll need some of those. And it's good to keep your carpenter working out things. There's a lot of stuff that you could make out of wood, but would be maybe better made out of other materials. So I normally don't make armor stands, or generally most furniture except beds, which have to be made out of wood. You can make a few training weapons. They're pretty bad in combat, but you can use them to train before you have actual metal. Wheelbarrows in case for once we get stockpiles, and then some bins also for once we get stockpiles, and more barrels for our food stockpile. So we need to make a crafts workshop here, and currently any dwarf will do it, which I guess is kind of, another one of the benefits of this system is that I don't actually care about the quality of these crafts, so I guess I'll just let any dwarf do it. Just a few wooden cups, and they make multiple with each order, so just assign like 3 will be plenty. And so you can get cups into your tavern by assigning it a location at the tavern. This will mean you can get guests, which you might want to avoid early on, like if you're new, because they'll eat and drink and give you nothing in return, basically. But they are kind of fun, so I guess I'll just set one up immediately and I'll kind of see what it's like. So what we can do is set a desired number of goblets, and this means when you make a chest here, so actually I'll get that going, a rock coffer is the stone equivalent. So we see here chest, but I'm going to place the chest, and then it's going to become it's going to accept coffers. Coffers are just the name for a stone chest. Oh, we already have a visitor. Wow, that was very fast. Yeah, okay, human maceman has already shown up. If they like the place, they might join us as a mercenary, which we, again, do not need. But they don't cost money, they just cost the food that it takes to... Oh, the reason we can't brew stuff is because we don't have enough barrels. Empty food storage item, that's what that means. So actually, we should focus on making more barrels. Clearly, we do not have enough. You will need a lot of barrels. Like, you can just keep making barrels, and it's good training for your carpenter, right? So, okay, there they go. They just stored a bunch of cups in here. And so once they store some drinks here, the tavern will be easily operable. Now, to get to the farm, like to keep the snatch to the food stockpile, right? And then want to dig up until we reach soil. This is probably good enough. But let's see. Yeah, this is still in stone, so I might just dig up again. Is that gonna work? That might not work. Okay, so that does not work. The new stairs are simpler, but there's times where they can be more difficult. I mean, this would be difficult in previous ones as well. So if I wanted to make this work, I'd need to take... I don't think this can work. With the way stairs used to work, I believe I could construct up/down stairs here. Tell them to go up, but I believe I'm not allowed to construct stairs if the floor above them isn't accessible. Let me just check. Yeah, okay. The old stair system, you would have been able to fix this. The new system, we just have to build the stairs here. And then delete that. And this is still stone, so we need... Ooh, that might be a bit difficult. So we'll have this ridiculous staircase where you go up and then here and then up and then here and then up. And then here will be the farms. Here we go. So now we have space. So there have been changes to the underground farms. Supposedly you get less food from them now, but it's hard to tell. So I'm just gonna make one. Eventually, once we hit the caverns, then grass will start to grow underground. Right now it won't though, so we see all the sand could be growing grass on it, but it isn't, because we have not opened the caverns yet. So once we do that, we'll be able to make a giant pasture where we can put all our animals and keep them safe underground. So the largest you can make a farm is 10 by 10, and I just do that because it's like less to manage, just one big farm plot. Sure. Okay, here we go. There's our farm plot. For some reason it's under workshops now. It's a little bit weird. It's not a workshop, it's a farm, but sure. I think unfortunately we'll have to make a kind of strange looking farm like this. And then this. Plump helmets. Plump helmets. Plump helmets. Plump helmets. They're very good. And you'll notice poor soil. Cavern soil is best. That's completely new. I do not know how extreme the difference is, but from my test, underground farms still seemed okay. So I think the safety of just having this nice, easy underground farm is worth it. And there's another trick as well. This is below ground, right? Underground farm. But you might notice this still has grass on it. That's because if you expose something to the air, it will always be above ground. So that means you can take this and apply that to a 10 by 10 area and get a 10 by 10 above ground farm that's actually underground because you've sealed it off. Now the main reason I do this is not actually to have a safer above ground farm. It's because there's all these pebbles on the ground that stop me from making a big farm. Like, let me try and place a farm, right? Farm plot. There's a bunch of holes in it. Look at that. Oh, have they removed the maximum size? Okay, it looks like they may have removed the maximum size limit for farms. It used to be 10 by 10, but that's much bigger. And you notice it's not just the pebbles, it's also random plants in the way too, that I can't necessarily get rid of. This dead sapling, it's blocking the farm. And so that just annoys me so much that I go out of my way to channel out a 10 by 10 area and then build a farm underneath it. We don't need to do that immediately, but that's always been something that I like doing because above ground plants are really good. You might notice there's different growing seasons for the different underground plants. It's a little bit weird, there aren't seasons underground. Above ground plants do not have seasons. That's just one of the benefits. I imagine because underground farming would be so good. So how do you make above ground farming better? Well, remove the seasons from it, even though that makes no sense at all. It's very easy to miss it, but we just got our first migrant wave. It used to pause the game when this happened, and there is actually a setting. You'll have to find it yourself. I'll show where it is, I guess. I don't remember right now. To change certain announcements to pause the game. And I think migrants is worth pausing the game for because it's a bunch of new dwarves you have to figure out what to do with. But you do get this new arrival job on them so you can know which ones are new. So whenever you get new migrants, it's important to look at them to figure out what you want them to do. So it seems like we're getting just these 4. Just kind of a small first wave. We have a peasant who has no skills at all. A doctor, decent at doctoring skills. We don't really need one yet. A dwarf who only has 2 points in bone carver. And a cheese maker. Oh god. Okay, this is a classic useless migrant wave. So when I get a dwarf with useless skills, one of the first things I might do is assign them to the military. We don't have one yet, and it's a bit early to be making one, so let's go to the next step, which is assigning them a job where the skill doesn't really matter. So basically, I think the most common, the best skills for dwarves that have no relevant skills are farming skills or fishing skills. Notable also is furnace operating, which we don't need yet, but I typically would get a few furnace operators just because there can be a lot of work to do. They're going to be hauling stuff around for a lot of the time. I would make this bone carver a general crafts dwarf, which is something I often make just because, I don't think wood and stone crafting are important enough to each have their own dwarf, but their attributes are really bad. I think because I am very low on jobs, I'll make the doctor I got my chief medical dwarf. Oh, and manager. I'll make the bone carver into a manager, because I mentioned needing one of those. And I also like to make them the bookkeeper. Because manager doesn't really require work, but it requires an office, and so a bookkeeper works at an office, so you just like to make them the same dwarf. I think I'm going to give the peasant fishing, just because I don't see anything else for them to do. Actually, I think I could start setting up a military now. So I'm going to take the farmer that I got, that happens to have a bit of skill in spear dwarf. Competent isn't enough to really, matter, but sure. And I will make them the militia commander. So for setting up a military, I want to give them some basic weapons. So a training spear is what we'll be able to make with just a carpenter, and then wooden shields. Wood is actually the best material to make shields out of, so you want to get your carpenter making some of those. You can wait until later because then you'll get the highest quality shields, masterwork, which is pretty important, the difference in quality there. So to set up the military can be pretty confusing. So this is the squad menu. We'll need to create a squad. I prefer not to set a uniform, and it'll already be the militia commander that we just assigned. So to prepare it, we'll need to, we can first set it to a schedule, and you typically want them to just be on training. And that'll mean they'll just train whenever they can. Now we don't have a spot for them to train yet, but we'll have one very soon. Then to equip them, go here, and it's a little... So I thought for a while you needed to make a uniform. You do not need to. You can go to their details and just assign them, right now all we have is a shield and a training spear. So that's all you're gonna get. Just confirm that, and they'll go get them when they can. I'm going to be cutting out my explanation of setting up a military to make that its own video. So for now, I'm just giving them a wooden shield and a wooden training weapon, so they'll get some training in, and then later I'll give them proper equipment. So it just doesn't get the barracks before it's completely done here. Barracks, and then you assign which squad will use it. This will be one where it'll be sleeping, training, storing items, and ammunition here. You want to place a trade depot before the caravan arrives, because without it they won't bring their wagons, which means they'll be carrying a lot less. So it's midsummer now. Now's the time you should start thinking about the caravan a bit. Oh, damn it. Okay. While these... Oh, it's stealing the battle axe right now. It already has it. Oh my god. So keys, I don't know what they are in real life. They are... They are the worst wild animal you could have in your embark site. I mentioned alligators are the only animal I've consistently had be dangerous and attacking me. These are worse. They just steal your items, and yeah, I mean, we didn't need the iron pickaxe, the extra pickaxe and battle axe. They would have been good to keep. I normally don't bother. The tutorial tells you to really hurry and dig straight down, build a workshop, build a stockpile right now, do this immediately. That's how it felt like to me, at least. You don't normally need to do that. I don't think you need to hurry nearly that much. But if you have keys, then they will actually steal your items. Here's our second farm plot. In winter, we can only have plump helmets. Dimple cups are useless. And then in spring, I'll take sweet pods, and then quarry bushes, and then cave wheat, I guess. I think pigtails are more important than quarry bushes. We still don't have enough barrels. I think the problem is we've been gathering too many plants. We've gathered so many plants that all of our barrels have been used to store those plants, which is nice, got a lot of plants. More barrels. So we've dug down quite a bit, and I still haven't found a flux stone. We did find tetrahedrite though, that's nice. So I think I might designate this floor as the beginning of the mines. I like to separate the mines from the main fortress for safety reasons. The mines will break into the caverns, and you can be attacked from there. Oh, we've unlocked work orders. Okay, that's excellent. So work orders, instead of manually clicking add barrel, go here, and you might need to search for it because it can be a longer list. And why? They're all wooden. Okay, barrel. Make 10 barrels right there, and we can even say, actually, I need 30 barrels. And that's much faster. Once you get a manager, you can just start doing this and make things a lot easier. For a few useful submenus in this labor area, again, the kitchen, I'd recommend against cooking plump helmets early on. We got some fisher berries. Those will be a very good above ground farming crop. Seeds, once you have a lot of seeds, you can just start cooking them. And again, I'd recommend against cooking drinks. Meat, absolutely cook those. And then stone use. So with this, we can actually find out that dolomite is the flux stone we have, because it's selected to be used in non-economic jobs. This means, are masons allowed to use flux stone? Are they allowed to use iron ore to make a chair? You normally shouldn't do that. If you wanted to, you can tell them to. But if you have, a flux stone layer, then yeah, make furniture out of flux stone. It's pretty nice. And dolomite, I guess, is already enabled because that's the one that we have, so we'll be able to find that. For the most part, I would recommend not changing this, but if you're importing flux stone to build stuff out of instead of for steel, I guess, then you need to look here. to enable it. I can also disable the use of any other stone. So by default they're all enabled, but you can just say, I hate andesite, don't make furniture out of andesite, stop making furniture out of andesite, and then they won't. Standing orders, there's a lot of options here. I think for the most part you're fine to leave them all on the default level. There's not much that I would change here, but there are some helpful things. Only farmer's harvest can be useful because harvesting provides farming skill. It doesn't require any, but the farming skill increases the amount of food you get when the food is planted by a farmer. And so letting your farmers get more skill will increase the amount of food they'll be able to give you. But their skill doesn't affect the harvesting itself, so it's also fine to just let anybody do it. So if we had a readily accessible fluxstone layer, I'd like to start making my bedrooms there, because it'll be a lot more valuable, but fortunately we don't, so we'll just be making it into the mudstone. I like to make my bedrooms 3x3, just because having really good bedrooms can make dwarves very happy, but you can just make really small ones. It's a lot easier, but I find that the time doesn't matter that much. I'm not like in a rush to do things. I'm making a very good fortress where everybody is happy. And also on the same level, I suppose I could make some offices. So just do those here. They don't need to be big. I guess we'll make some small offices and then like big offices. A lot of offices, dwarves will want them to be big. They like to be valuable, and so you want to make them bigger. So I'll make small and big offices. So our manager / bookkeeper is the first person that's going to need an office. And they'll get to work cataloging what items we have. The supply caravan has arrived in autumn, although it is a grim reminder of the winter hardships to come. Again, there aren't winter hardships. It's not that big a deal what the merchants bring. I often will literally not trade with merchants in the first year because I don't really have much valuable yet, but also there's not much that I need yet. So we can move goods to the depot. The interface is really annoying. I hope they improve it. Diplomacy. So this screen you can request things you want to buy next year. My favorite things to request are ore that we don't have. So I've noticed we should have iron ore somewhere, but we haven't gotten it yet. So I'm going to order some iron ore and bituminous coal and lignite. I don't really think there's anything else that's worth ordering. I mean, you can order pets. If you didn't bring enough animals with you on Embark, you can get more here. This one I almost never remember, but if we want to make water skins and handwear, you can get extra money from that. Let's just see if they have anything useful, and then we might bring some goods. They do actually have some bituminous coal already, and water skins and flasks can take a bit of time to make, so getting some of those could be good. If you see something with a nonsense name like a shoreast, it's probably an instrument. The world has randomly generated instruments. You don't need them, but I mean, your tavern will likely appreciate them. It can be worthwhile to buy one of each type of cloth: animal, plant, and silk. They don't actually have one of each, but if a dwarf enters a strange mood, they might demand a specific type of cloth, and so you need to make sure you have all three available. Silk is the hardest to get early on, but they don't have any with them. So there's a few things I might want to buy. I'm going to see what I can get. This is why you might want to add a pause to that migrant wave announcement. So they arrived here. They're nowhere in sight. They've all already integrated to my fortress, so I have to guess which ones they were. It's a lot of useless dwarves. Oh god. I got another bunch of useless dwarves, so I significantly expanded the military. Ooh, okay, so we have a petition from one of our guests. Cicely Pine Mansions wants to reside here to entertain guests. I suppose they make dwarves a bit happy. But let's take a look. So we've got this human bard They are a legendary musician. Ooh, and they know many musical forms and poems. Okay. They're not very important, but sure. You know, it can be kind of fun. Doing this, you can get, like, humans to join your fortress, which can be, I mean, they're not that different. You do have to make bigger armor for them, but they can hold long swords in one hand. It's kind of helpful. I don't know. One thing that can be nice to do is leave a craft or workshop. Even if you get somebody that you designate to be good at crafts, you can make 2 workshops. Restrict one to the one that's good at crafts, so you know they're doing that. Then have one that's just open to anybody, because dwarves kind of like crafting stuff, and it can make them mad if they haven't. So to just keep dwarves happy, you can say, oh, make a wooden craft. Anybody that wants to make a few wooden crafts, and it'll make them happier, because a lot of dwarves that have jobs unrelated to crafting will get mad that they haven't been creative in a long time. Well, you know, that'll help them. And about these bedrooms, there's a multi-paint button, which allows you to just do that to immediately make them all bedrooms, which is nice. That's a new feature. Dwarves will automatically get their own bedrooms when they want them. When they go to sleep and there's a free bedroom, they'll just take one. You can't manually assign it for, like, you know, the generic bedrooms. You don't need to, but eventually you'll have dwarves that demand high quality bedrooms, so you'll want to make sure you assign it to the right person. So something you want in the long term for defensive purposes is a drawbridge. You have to select which direction it's going to raise. Right, so this is in this direction. You want it facing the exit, and you just make it. I mean, the bigger does help. Oh, there used to be a 10 block limit on it, but we don't want it to, like, fling our military dwarves. So we'll just make it this big. Ideally, be making it out of stone blocks, but raw stone is fine. So the thing about the drawbridge is that once we link it up by mechanism to a lever, we can then pull the lever and close the fortress off. Right there, it'll create a wall. And that, you know, if a siege attacks and you're not prepared, it'll be very valuable. Because they can't break through drawbridges. It's something that's, like, on the list to eventually be added, like, oh, goblins can mine through to your fortress if you're just hiding underground, but it's still not in yet. So if you're new to the game, that's a great way to be like, I don't have a military, close off the fortress. Sorry if that video was kind of unfocused. I was just kind of going in and seeing what would happen. For the other tutorials, I'm going to be focusing on specific topics. I'll make a farming tutorial, a metalsmithing tutorial, a military tutorial. Those are my ideas so far, but there'll probably be more. I'm hoping focusing on one area instead of just like a 50-minute just anything that happens to me will make for a better video. Bye. I don't know how do people end videos. I don't know.